Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another fabulous Friday Ramblings. I am your perpetual host, David, the Bardic one, and we're going to do something a little bit different this week because we're not going to discuss an entertainment product in and of itself. Usually I do reviews on movies or television, or I break down the history of certain comic book characters or even legacies. What we're going to do right here is we're going to discuss something that's, well, it's kind of behind the scenes like we've done with our short little vlogs touching on legal matters, but more importantly, it's about something that is both the fictional goodness and the real life behind the scenes history, because we're talking about David Seville. I know a lot of y'all are immediately pinging, wait, isn't David Seville the foster father of the chipmunks in the cartoons and the movies? Yes, he is. And that is one half of the David Seville equation. The other half of it, and this gets into why the character of David Seville exists within the fictional continuity of the chipmunks, is David Seville was also the stage name of the creator of the Chipmunks. And the man who has continued the legacy after the death of the original creator. That's right, folks, we are discussing the two men who make up the single David Seville stage name, and as such have ruled all things chipmunks. Now, we're not going to go into complete life histories on either gentleman or a complete history of all things chipmunks. As I said, this is going to be a focus on what David Seville really is. So, easy things first, we're going to discuss the fictional side because that's the side most people know of. And I kind of already touched on it real quick in that passing introduction. David Seville, as a fictional character within the cartoons and movies, and even the record albums, if you ever listen to them, because that's what inspired the cartoons and the movies, was the little intro skits before the Chipmunk songs, is the producer of the Chipmunks, who, of course, among other things, are a fictional band, which is where the fictional version of David Seville started. He was the character of the producer that was introducing a band that didn't exist. Eventually, because of the popularity of that music, we got TV shows and films featuring a much more fully fleshed out version of David Seville. Now, besides being their producer, David Seville is also the foster father of the Chipmunks, which is really interesting because it basically parallels what you get in many cases in the real life entertainment industry, in which parents who, were famous behind the scenes push their children into the spotlight. Now, in the case of the Chipmunks, everything works out positive, mostly because, being fictional characters, the Chipmunks never have to age and never end up with that VH1 behind the music true Hollywood story, which I think was actually E! Entertainment, but still, you get the cliches and the references there of the grown-up, outgrew the what made you popular, and crashed hard phase. Chipmunks get to stay young and popular forever. And they have been popular for a long time. How long? Since the late 50s. That would mean it has been 50, 60, 70 odd years. Almost. Let me think. Wait, hold on. Let's do our math. Let's see. The Chipmunks first came to fame in 1958. So 60 years would have been 2018. So as of this recording, which is 2021, for those people who may be watching this many years later, because this is the internet and everything survives on the internet, that is 63 years. 63 years the Chipmunks have been running hard and running strong. And David Seville has always been the producer and father figure to this fictional band. But if they're a fictional band, how did they make that music that birthed the cartoons and the movies that have even gone live action with CGI? Which I've never really understood that. Can you really call them live action movies when the major stars are CGI'd and kind of juxtaposed on? Is there like an official hybridized term for that? Like live CGI? We need a new name for it. Because it's not really live action if half your characters are CGI. Especially the last movies where they introduced the Chipettes, so you had like 6 characters running around that didn't exist outside of computers. CG live action? CG Live. There we go. CG Live films. So who made the music? Well, that's where we're going to pull David Seville out of the fiction world and into the real David Seville. Here's your history, folks. And yes, there's going to be some little bit of slightly awkward pronunciation here for just a second. Bear with me. Rostam Sipan Bagdasarian is an American singer, songwriter, record producer, and actor. Now we're going to go through the early days of his career very quickly. And if you're wondering, folks, where that possibly slightly off pronunciation and cultural history came from, he is of Armenian descent. So there you go. And was originally born in Fresno, California. Real quick, just a couple quick highlights. Before getting into entertainment, our buddy Rostam, often called Ross for simplicity. Ross Bagdasarian served as a staff sergeant in the United States Army Air Forces, and during World War II he was stationed in Europe, specifically in the city of Seville in Spain, which would inspire his stage name of David Seville when he got into civilian life and the entertainment industry. He did spend time acting on Broadway, specifically in The Time of Your Life by William Saroyan, who is his first cousin and a lifelong friend. He's also appeared in minor roles in several films, such as Viva Zapata, Stalag 17, Destination Gobi, Rear Window, and The Proud and Profane. His most contributing role in these films is in Alfred Hitchcock's legendary Rear Window, in which he is the piano player. And in Stalag 17, he sings I Love You in a pivotal scene at the POW Christmas party. So, if you have access to those films, go back, watch them, pay attention to those characters, because that's the real-life David Seville. His major success came with songwriting, producing a handful of songs that did well, including the iconic Come On to My House, originally recorded by K.R. Men, and later turned into a million-selling hit by Rosemary Clooney. Later on, though, he would write a song that has become extremely well known and remade and recovered by several people, and that is the novelty song Witch Doctor. Yes, that infamous ooh-ee, ooh-ah-ah, ting-tang, walla-walla bing-bang, ooh-ee, ooh-ah-ah, ting-tang, walla-walla bing-bang. That's your boy. That's Ross, a.k.a. Dave. Now, part of the way he recorded this song and managed to play the role of both the regular guy discussing the witch doctor and the voice of the witch doctor himself, regular guy, witch doctor, regular guy, witch doctor, woo, blue, was by recording himself singing one side and then speeding up his voice to create a distorted but still very audible effect. Now, I know this sounds extremely simple, but we are talking about the 1950s when recording technology was nowhere near the same. There was no digital anything. And this technique was trickier than it seemed. This is stuff that would have had to be done by somebody who, as he himself had already done, had some experience with recording and producing music already and being familiar with the equipment used. The song became a major hit, and later on that year he recorded the first Chipmunks song, and that is the Chipmunks Christmas. Yep, that old classic that never stays off the radios, because every December we all get to hear all over again about how Alvin just wants his hula hoop. Everything Chipmunks came from that. Now, what's really fun about this is not only did Ross use this same technique, but he was all the voices in it. By manipulating in tiny little increments, he was not only the voice of Dave Seville as the producer telling them, hey, sing the song straight, do it the way you're told to do and the way I wrote it, but he was also Alvin, Simon, and Theodore in there. That is impressive on a production front. Now, the song sold 4 million records in the first few months, topped the Billboard charts 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after New Year's, and won 3 Grammy Awards at the first annual Grammy Awards on May 4th, 1959, which was Best Recording for Children, Best Comedy Performance, and Best Non-Classical Engineered Song. And of course, the first two were one credited to his pen name of David Seville, and the song was the 23rd most performed Christmas song of the 20th century. Now, I want you to think about that real close, folks. The first time the Grammys were created as an award, at a time when the music industry, was so prolific, that they were like, we need awards to honor the fact that basically everybody making music right now is making incredible music. And this guy wins 3 awards. Mind explosive. Alright, not just 3 awards, but in 3 distinct categories, including that third one, which is a technical category, not a performing category, which reinforced the fact that the real David Seville, Mr. Ross Bogdasarian, was quite a genius on both sides of the microphone. But wait, we're not done, because, as we said, the Chipmunk train was just starting. Now known to the world definitively as David Seville for all eternity, the man has gone whole hog into it. And in the following years, Chipmunks released several more hit songs, including Alvin's Harmonica, Alvin's Orchestra, their rendition of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and most infamously, the Chipmunks sing the Beatles' hits in 1964 during the height of the Beatles and the greater British invasion of the music scene in America. Bagdasarian then served as producer on The Alvin Show, the first TV cartoon broadcast featuring Alvin and the Chipmunks, which ran from October 1961 to September 1962. During this time, Life magazine reporter Shauna Alexander would quote that Bagdasarian was the first case in the annals of popular music that one man has served as writer, composer, publisher, conductor, and multiple vocalist of a hit record, thereby directing all possible revenues from the song back into his pocket. Bagdasarian would himself form Chipmunk Enterprises, which served to control the burgeoning Chipmunk empire and ensure Bagdasarian would maintain full control over the Chipmunks and anything done with his intellectual property. This was a very important business move and a very genius business move. All credit in the world to Dave Seville. Now, it is important to note that on the Alvin Show, just go ahead and just double check my notes here, folks. It would produce a total of 26 episodes, and Ross Bagdasarian would serve not just as the voice of David, but continue to portray Alvin, Simon, and Theodore, along with supporting characters such as Sam Valiant and Gondoliero. So here's where we really get into the kayfabe-ness of David Seville over-encompassing Ross himself. And that is that Ross Bagdasarian did die of a heart attack at his home in Beverly Hills on January 16, 1972, 11 days before his 53rd birthday. Bagdasarian would will the Chipmunk franchise to his wife, Arma Nuhi, and 3 children, Carol, an actress in her own right, Adam, a fiction writer, and Ross Jr. Ross Jr. said in an interview that he worshipped his father and felt the need to continue his work, resuming activities of the franchise with his wife, Janice Carmen, in the late 1970s after finishing law school and becoming the complete owner when he bought the rights from his brother and sister in the mid-1990s. Yep, that's right, folks. Ross Jr. not only took control of managing all things Chipmunks to ensure that what his father had created would, in fact, perpetuate, but, more importantly, continued to do it under the David Seville name, keeping the character going, both in a fictional front and as the main name behind the content, using the David Seville stage name on credits for ongoing Chipmunks albums, as well as the idea of, even if it's just the music, David Seville's producing it. So what did Ross Bagdasarian do as the new David Seville? Well, under his supervision, new Chipmunk records were created, including Chipmunk Punk, and in 1981, the Chipmunks returned to television in the cartoon special A Chipmunk Christmas, followed 2 years later by the iconic Alvin and the Chipmunks Saturday morning cartoon series that debuted on NBC, as opposed to the original Alvin Show, which was on CBS. Based on that series, the feature film The Chipmunk Adventure was released in 1987, and in both in these specials and theatrical movie, Bagdasarian Jr. would voice Alvin, Simon, and Dave Seville, with his wife voicing Theodore and the three Chipettes. And Bagdasarian and Carmine continue to hold tight creative and financial control of the Chipmunk franchising, reviewing each and every business contract in great detail, as Ross Jr. is himself a graduate of law school and knows a thing or two about reading that fine print in contracts. Now, he would briefly sue Universal Pictures in 1996 after licensing the right to the Chipmunk characters for a string of direct-to-video films. He claimed after 4 years of this deal that Universal failed to properly utilize, market, and merchandise the characters, hence resulting in a loss of royalties to Bagdasarian. The case was decided in Bagdasarian's favor, him quoting that, "For us it was a custody battle," and his wife quoting that they finally realized, okay, these two are really fighting for their kids, reinforcing the fact that Ross Jr. does this not just because, hey, it is good business and it's something to do with your life, but that he genuinely loves the Chipmunks and the David Seville character, not, as an extension of his love for his father. In real life, Ross Jr. has 2 children and does live in Montecito, California with his wife, Janice Carmen. For the record, Ross Jr. has continued to voice the characters of the Chipmunks, including in the recent quadrilogy of Chipmunk CG Live films, as providing the singing voice of Alvin Seville, as well as being the songwriter for the first of those 4 movies. He also does the full voice acting for Alvin, Simon, and Dave in the most recent series, Alvin and the Chipmunks, which is a CGI animated musical television series produced by Technicolor Animation Productions with participation of the French channel M6. And is broadcast, broadcast on Nicktoons in the United Kingdom and Ireland, and on the main Nick channel, aka Nickelodeon to us older people, in the United States. Also, for you streaming folks, you can check it out on Hulu. So, what have we learned today about all this? Well, as I said, we learned that Dave Seville is not just the often frustrated foster father to Alvin in the cartoons and movies, but is a stage name for 2 generations of men who have devoted themselves not just to making sure that all things Alvin and the Chipmunks are as high quality as possible, but to maintaining a acting and singing aspect to the franchise, showing that for the real life Dave Seville, it is both sides of the coin that they work when it comes to this entertainment empire. And that is something that, whether you're a fan of any particular version of the Chipmunks or not, personally, I'm not as big on the recent CG live-action movies. But what can I say? Maybe I'm just getting too old for modern, young ages humor. I don't know. That's a question I'll have to ask myself at a later time. The point being, though, no matter what version of the Chipmunks is your favorite, go in knowing that it really is very much an act of love from Dave Seville. Whether it's the original Dave Seville or the new Dave Seville, hey, that foster father, kind, understanding role you see on the cartoons is basically a metaphor for the way both men have felt about these creations and continue to do so to this day, leaving the question open of when that which happens to everybody does eventually happen to Ross Jr., will one of his two children become the third Dave Seville? That's right, folks, because when it comes to family business, it's a question of how long will the family keep control of business. Personally, I'm hoping for a third generation Dave Seville. Keep the stage name. Keep the cartoon identity. Don't lose it. Because, as I said, the character of Dave Seville that you see in front of the camera, it speaks to how much the Dave behind the camera really cares about Alvin, Simon, and Theodore and everything they give to all of us that enjoy quality musical entertainment. So, give us some comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss other videos. Feel free to tell me what your favorite version of Dave Seville is. Because, hey, even if I'm not personally going to sit down and binge them, I'll give all credit and all respect to all the Dave Sevilles out there. Whether real life, on camera, on record, or whatever else the Chipmunks appear in next. Heck, I think they even made a few video games. Maybe we'll have to do a video about that. How widespread the Chipmunk Empire is. Now that we've discussed the power behind follow-up videos, you'll have to make sure you tune in every Friday to find out. Because every 7 days, we ramble. We occasionally make a good point, but more importantly, we keep everything with a silver lining and a positive attitude because it's entertainment. It's nothing to get angry and hateful over. See you in 7, folks. Not Dave Seville, out.